you know, the original saga was about the father, the children, and the grandchildren. And I mean, that's not a secret to anybody. It's even in the novels.
Howdy folks, and welcome back to the channel. As you may or not know, I have been covering the Shatterpoint novel on live streams. This story was the reason that Matt Stover was chosen to write the Revenge of the Sith novelisation, which includes a lot more tie-ins to other expanded universe material.
I had a long talk with Mr. Lucas out at Skywalker Ranch about Revenge of the Sith. I asked him a lot of questions. We spent a lot of time talking about Jedi and you know how he wanted the book to feel and stuff like that. And you know, in those days, there was none of this kind of canon wars came about later on. It was all canon. Everything published was canon. The reason they hired me to write Revenge of the Sith was because of Shatterpoint. They thought I might have the right, be able to strike the tone they were looking for. And so I thought, well, I've already written 2 books in the EU. Why not draw on the EU to kind of expand and inform the context of the story?
The hardback of Shatterpoint was published by Del Rey in June 2003, and then the paperback edition was published in 2004. And that's the version that has the prologue written by George Lucas. And that basically introduces the Clone Wars multimedia project. The plot of Shatterpoint was highly influenced by a book called Heart of Darkness by an author called Joseph Conrad. There's a movie based on it, and that's Apocalypse Now. Matthew Stover, the author, described the concept as arising in a brainstorm session encapsulated in a single sentence: Apocalypse Now with Jedi. Here's a quote from him where he said, "I was ordered to break new ground with Shatterpoint. My original concept for a Mace Windu novel was going to tie tightly into a New Hope era and provide Mace with a fairly standard array of sidekicks, including a dashing pilot, a strong-minded warrior woman, and a droid for comic relief. The good folks at Lucasfilm shot down this idea with a request that I write something more along the lines of All Quiet on the Western Front or Cold Mountain. It wouldn't seem likely since the latter is a tragic romance and the former is a coming-of-age in the trenches tale, in which everybody dies. So after much deliberation, I offered to write a kinda sorta Heart of Darkness / Apocalypse Now with Jedi in it, and they thought this was a good idea." Matthew Stover heavily references Shatterpoint along with Labyrinth of Evil and numerous graphic novels in his novelisation of Revenge of the Sith. And we know that he brought a lot of questions from Lucino with him to these meetings with George, and George was involved in that way through correspondence with him. Shatterpoint was also the first novel in the Clone Wars multimedia project, a 3-year project created by Lucasfilm. It attempted to tell the story of the Clone Wars in real time through books, comics, television and video games, in conjunction with Del Rey, Dark Horse Comics, Cartoon Network, that's the 2003 micro-series, and the LucasArts games. Set largely between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith.
The second group of episodes in the animated series leads right up to the events that happen in the film. So we get a little background on what was going on right before episode 3.
And that's in terms of in-universe and real life that took place. This is actually echoing the Shadows of the Empire multimedia project. And the timeline itself could be found in the books marked a Clone Wars novel. Also, the Boba Fett young adult series is in that. Each media was listed along with how many months after the Battle of Geonosis it took place. So it had like a really linear, like chronological timeline, which is really cool. And that's where, like, when the TCW comes into it, all that starts getting messed up. The list of things involved: you've got 2003 micro-series, here's the novels, you've got Shatterpoint, Legacy of the Jedi, Cestus Deception, Medstar 1 and 2, then you've got Jedi Trial, and then finally you've got Yoda Dark Rendezvous. And a side note on that, Dark Rendezvous was originally going to be a different book, but it wasn't released because George basically gave the okay to do a novel about Yoda, which had never been permitted before. So he gave the okay, and then it was given priority. The novel that it replaced was called Escape from Dagu. It was to do with Shak Ti. It actually had cover art created for it as well. Other series of the Clone Wars multimedia project are the Republic Commando novels following the game of the same name. And although they were not introduced until 2.5 years into the project, only Republic Commando, Hard Contact and the game are part of the Clone Wars multimedia project timeline. And that's due to others being released after Revenge of the Sith. So there are some stories that take place in that time frame that aren't included in that. And Star Wars Insider also published some short stories in it as well. The comics were the Republic comics. That's where you get Anakin being given his scar that you see in Revenge of the Sith. George said that Anakin's scar is something that's explained in the novels. Obviously it's the comic, but I know in Labyrinth of Evil it's also stated that Ventress gave Anakin his scar. He literally said that that's something that gets explained in the novels and that Howard Rothman has to make that happen.
George is well in control of the movies and the TV shows, and that's his world. So he calls himself the father. Mm-hmm. And the world outside of that is way too big for him to personally supervise. And he's entrusted that to me.
Prior to the declaration to regulate EU to Legends, making it non-canon, making something that was never canon, non-canon, right?
Canon is always changing, that's the wonderful thing. And canon can be whatever you want it to be. So, you know...
It was all canon. Everything published was canon.
Much of the material within the Clone Wars multimedia project had been directly contradicted by material from TCW 2008, which often told its stories without regard to continuity previously established within this project.
But people get into all these debates of what's canon, what's not, and sometimes forget just the special nature of telling a good story.
Clone Wars obviously changed the backstory for Asajj Ventress. Star Wars Marvel purist he's been covering her original EU story timeline on his channel, so you should check that out for sure. A little bit of history on the read-through. I first announced it on December 1st last year. That's when I read the blurb on the back of the book. Yeah, it's pretty neat. 6 months later, here we are. Including this stream tonight, it will have taken us 24 streams to finish it. Yeah, reading the book start to finish on live stream, it's been a lot of fun actually. So I just wanted to say before we get into the next few chapters to finish it off, thanks so much to everyone that's followed along. Whether you were here from the start, you joined in along the way, you went back and caught the replays, or if you stick around just for the first half of the streams when we just hang out and we talk a little bit about the cringy stuff that's going on in the fandom, and then you tap out for the reading. Well, thanks for your support either way. It's been awesome. And tonight's stream really is a milestone for the channel. It will be our first ever live read-through of a full EU novel. And I think it's important. We always talk a lot about preserving the lore and sharing it. And I think I've done my fair share on the channel, but this is really sharing one of the EU stories with people that, you know, might not have the book or have a means of obtaining it or whatever. Now that's an ending. That's an ending to a book. Wow. We did it. Shatterpoint. Chapter 1 to chapter 23. 6 months. It took us. Right, folks. 7 out of 10. End of stream. Nah, just kidding. Right. I haven't actually prepared anything for my thoughts on the book, so we're just going to kind of wing it. Let's see. I really, really enjoy Matthew Stover's writing. I think he's very descriptive. I think he's really colorful with like his illustrations. And wait, what's this? Oh, he's taking notes. Purist is taking notes. We'll just leave that up. Yeah, so his writing style is obviously incredible. Like, it's top tier masterclass, right? Like the introduction, I'd say the intro in Palpatine's office where they're looking at the big hologram of like this sort of crime scene that's taking place, and Depa Billaba is obviously the suspect, and kind of enticing you into the story. And then Mace Windu heads off to this planet. It's the start of the Clone Wars. He's going into like something that he's never really faced before. He lands on this planet kind of incognito, like hiding his lightsaber and stuff. And then, well, he's not full of himself, but he knows what he's capable of. And then he's in search of Depa, and he gets sucked into this wildlife, this jungle that's just pure warfare, absolute pure warfare. It's horrific, it's violent, so it's awesome, right? But there's a few chapters in there that kind of drag on a bit. Sometimes it's too descriptive, and you're like, right. Like for instance, I was listening to OG Star Wars, and she was doing a listen party to the Young Jedi Knights novels, right? And they were descriptive, but they used it as a way to progress the story. This felt like it felt like he was kind of showing off a little bit of like how good he is at like writing, you know? It felt a little bit like that at times. So there was some slow chapters, but then it always made up for it. I felt like you'd always get like a slow chapter, but then it was like 2 chapters of like something really exciting happening, something progressing. One thing I can say is Mace Windu's journal entries. Those were always something I looked forward to. You'd always get a bit more insight into his characterization. Yeah, and then in terms of like side characters, like Nick Rostu, I really enjoyed him as a character. He was really witty and his dialogue was good. Like a lot of the conversations between characters in this book are phenomenal. I wasn't too taken by the villains in the story. Carvaster, they talk about him like he's almost like unbeatable, but I'm like, he just didn't seem that scary to me. It seemed like they were trying to make him tell us how villainous he was, you know, a bit more like a cartoon villain. Towards the end, especially, it got very gruesome. Like the deaths in this novel, I wish they were a little bit more hard hitting. Like when I thought Nick was going to die, I was like, oh no, here we go. The worst deaths I think were, there was the woman, I can't remember her name. Was it Floral? Near the start, she was going to take Mace on his journey, and then she got killed right away. And that was a little bit like, oh, that's what this book's like. That's what it's going to be happening. Like people are just going to die, just like that. And then his whole squad that he's with do kind of get taken out. A lot of it's through like disease and stuff like that as well. There was a lot of times where I felt like they were going to get off the planet. Like there was a lot of world building for this planet, Harun Kal, but then at the end of the day, like I kind of got fed up of being in the jungle, you know. But then I guess that kind of adds to the story. Like you're feeling like Mace, like you've been in it so long, you're just feeling like weighed down, and you just want this to kind of end. Not that the story's bad. I just mean like trudging through the jungle, you know. Trudging through the jungle, just wanting to see the other end of it. And then finally getting to meet with Depa Billaba was really cool. Mace obviously has this kind of bond with her, maybe similar to like Obi-Wan and Anakin, maybe like a bit more of a bond than he should have. I liked learning about her. I kind of liked that she hadn't gone full dark side, but the idea of using Vapad in this dark place obviously brought the dark side tendencies out, and that was happening to Mace as well. And then I just towards the end there, like I don't know why Stover decided to have Mace Windu get impaled by a lightsaber in his gut. I don't know why he decided to do that, because that's something that I don't normally turn a blind eye to. And like I was trying to explain, like like Starkiller went through a lot of recovery to come back from that when Vader stabbed him through the back, right? But then I just always go back to Qui-Gon. I'm like, Qui-Gon got impaled and he's dead. It's important that he dies from that, but everything I know about lightsabers tells me that you're gone if you're getting stabbed. And then he didn't really touch upon. I mean, I guess he did say that like, the Republic Army and stuff were already on their way as the war was kind of ending, kind of thing. So he got medical help. I hate that excuse. Oh, they got medical help right away. You know, it's kind of hard for me to defend. Like knowing that, you know, like the 03 Clone Wars and stuff. Like Mace is out there still fighting and doing loads of this awesome stuff, and then you get to Revenge of the Sith, and I just can't believe that he's been that severely injured, and he's coming up against Palpatine, Sidious, you know? I don't know, I might need to think about that and dwell on it a little bit. Anything with Yoda and Palpatine talking away, you know, that just, it's an absolute pleasure to read. And then I really enjoyed how he brought it all back to Anakin being the chosen one. Like, none of this matters, like the Clone War, any of it. The only thing that matters is the Jedi War, and it doesn't matter how many Jedi survive. Anakin is the chosen one, and he will fulfill the prophecy. So I really admired the fact that Stover kind of reined it in towards the end there. I don't know, man. I think in terms of rating, if I had to rate Shatterpoint, I'd give it a 5 out of 10. And I know we've spent a lot of time covering this book. We've had a lot of fun doing it. I enjoyed it a lot. Like, it's not a bad story. It's not a bad book. But I think that only goes to show how good all these other books are. Like, for this book to be at this standard and for all these other books to be higher than it, I think that's awesome. I might have pushed it to like, nah, it's not on the Heir of the Empire. I might have to rate Heir of the Empire higher than a 6. I might have to think about that. Maybe I'd rate this like a 4. Nah, I'll stick with 5. Shatterpoint is a solid 5 out of 10. And it doesn't mean it's a bad book. It just means it's not as great as these other stories that I've read. Okay? I think that's fair to say. I don't know why he had to stab him with the lightsaber. Really upset me. I mean, one thing I will say, it does, going by the afterword, it does seem like some time's passed. A lot of things have happened. So he had time to recover, but if I'm giving Starkiller the pass on that, then I can give Mace the pass. But when it comes to Disney Star Wars, in contrast, it's like the day after they're up and running, right? But still, it's hard to defend things when they're doing that, you know. There's a lot of other ways they could have nuked them, nerfed them, you know. It's because I don't want to say this book's less than like okay. Like, it's an okay book. Final verdict, 4.5 out of 10 is our Shatterpoint rating. And it might seem low. I don't really care. We've had a lot of fun covering it, and I really enjoyed the story. Nice one, folks. Thanks for all the continuous support. I'm going to love you and leave you. And as always, long live the expanded universe. Lang me your Lumsreek.
Howdy, purists. I'll be catching the full replay. Awesome, man. Thank you for being here, Scran. You had a good stream. Never doubt purist. I said 5. You ended up coming in at 4.5. So I actually talked up Shatterpoint. Star Wars Scran is a Shatterpoint hater. He gave it a 4.5. I gave it a 5. So I actually gave it a better rating than Scran. Amazing.